Hello. Okay. Today I wanted to talk about letting things go. And basically, what made me think of this is that April is like the start of the astrological new year. So, you know how you've got like Chinese New Year and then you've got like, I don't know, like Western New Year. And they're all like kind of different places, like ours is in January, and I'm not sure when Chinese New Year is. I'm uncultured on that, so I apologise. But astrological New Year is always in April at the start of Aries season. And if you don't know much about astrology, neither do I, but what I do know is that Aries is a fire sign. It's also, I want to say it's cardinal as well, which means that it's very like headstrong and will do its own thing regardless of the consequences, pretty much. And this is why they talk about like breakup season or like meeting new people season. Like, I don't know what they call it, but there's a name for it where this April, I would say like late March, early May period is where a lot of relationships break up. A lot of people realize their situations aren't what they want anymore. So like their jobs aren't working for them, or their friendships aren't what they used to be, or their home life needs changing. Like a lot of people encounter a lot of change around this April May period, like historically. And I think obviously there are extraneous variables aside from the fact that it's astrological new year, because I know there'll probably be someone being like, yeah, but like astrology's fake. I don't know. I don't know. There's probably going to be someone thinking that. But what I mean is that around this time of the year, we're looking for newness, and like we kind of realize what isn't kind of working. There's like a Gaelic festival or something. Like, I think it's Gaelic. Let me just look it up quickly. It's called Beltane. And I always find for myself, oh, May Day. So 1st of May. Yeah, so exactly what I was saying. I always find that on Beltane, like, things start happening again. I don't know, like, it's really hard to explain, but like, with my spirituality, it kind of like rises and falls, and like throughout the winter, it kind of like almost like takes time off. I don't know, like it like chills out a little bit, and then it's always around Beltane because, I mean, I've been doing this for like 2-3 years now, so I'm starting to see patterns in that sense. It's always around Beltane where weird shit starts happening again, or I start hearing things and seeing things, and like, you know, like I experience these new things coming through or whatever. And it's also, I feel like historically, this time of year, if you look at like animals being born and like spring, and like it's all about newness and like new life and new starts and new beginnings and new journeys and like blah 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all about these new opportunities. And I think a big thing that comes along with that a lot of people struggle to speak about, or don't speak about, or don't want to speak about, is that when you start something new, you often have to let things go as a response, like, to that. One of my friends, Freddie, he used to talk about vacuum theory. I can't remember the name of the theorist or the philosopher, or I don't know. He was much better at that than I was at remembering the names, but he told me that this theory, I think I've spoken about it before, but it was basically that so say for example, like your life is like a vacuum, and it's just like, like I always imagine it as like a circle, and it's like, you know, you've got like air particles in the circle, and all these different air particles are the things that you take up your time doing. So the circle is like your time and how you manage your time, and all the little particles are like the things that you do to manage it. So I don't know, working, or spending time with certain friends, or spending time with family, or hobbies. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, there's all these different things that make up your time and your being. And this theorist was saying that just the same way that air particles will fill a space, when you take something out of your life, when you remove something out of your life, by law, something has to fill it, because the air particles will just, and I know like things aren't air particles, but just follow me on this one. Air particles will just fill the space. So, but obviously that takes a bit of time. So you know how like, I don't know if in school they ever did that thing where they would like spray deodorant at you and then like for a couple of seconds you couldn't smell it and then you could smell it because the air particles filled the room. It's kind of like that in a sense where, you know how like, I don't know, you break up with someone or you get broken up with, or you have a falling out with a friend, or you, I don't know, like someone or something, or you change job and you don't have a job for a while, something leaves your life. There's like that period at the beginning of like loss and emptiness. And I think what really helps me is to realize that that is just the new air particles filling my space. If that makes sense. Like that's the way that I imagine it. It's almost like I needed to clear out a space for something new to come in. Do you know how they always say like the reason that all these doors are slamming in your face is to make you like see the one that's opening for you so that you don't pick the wrong one? Kind of like that. And I mean, this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, is change and loss and new beginnings. I mean, even though we do new things all the time, I feel like we have like an affinity towards stability. I feel like stability to us is safe and it's predictable, and our bodies like that. Like our bodies want to be in a familiar place with familiar people doing a familiar thing, because physically in the 3D, that's where like the least danger comes in. And you kind of got to remember that we're all like technically primitive. Like we're not, because we're not socialized to be that way, but we are all primitive beings biologically. There was a period of time where we were running away from snakes and spiders, and and it's like when you get to know the spiders around you and you know that they're not poisonous, it's like a sense of security. So I just squeaked. I don't know if anyone heard that. My body just made a squeak. But yeah, and then you see a spider that you don't know and you're like, is this gonna hurt me? Is this not gonna hurt me? I don't know, because I have had a spider that has bit me before. Do you know what I mean? It's the same with friends or new relationships or new jobs. You don't know if a new job's going to be good for you or right for you or whatever. And basically, the way I see it is anything that we do in life can be traced back to our primitive origins. And this is kind of peak, because we're not primitive like by nature anymore. Like we're primitive by nature, but we're not primitive in the sense of how we're living, Like we can't apply these old mechanisms and these old tools that served us for hundreds of thousands of years to our lives anymore. And then again, that goes for change. We don't want to change the old ways that we think. And I think this is a big thing for like parliament and governments, is all of these old structures and these old, there's all this old infrastructure and these old laws that worked perfectly fine, or I don't know if they did, but seemed to work for older generations, or in the Industrial Revolution, or hundreds of years ago when life was completely different. They're outdated now. And I feel like a big thing with life is you kind of got to learn when things aren't working. Like you've got to learn when things are outdated and they're not working the way they used to. And you know how like in movies they'll be like, I don't know why I'm getting like a detective movie. I don't even know what movie this is, but there'll be like a detective and he's like the best on the block, whatever. And then he'll go in, sorry, I've just woken up, by the way, which my voice probably sounds a bit shit, but he'll go into like his job or something, and they'll have hired like a young, hip, new detective or something, and he feels threatened. And this detective's like, I've got loads of new ideas, blah, 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 blah. And it's like a war. It's like a power struggle between the two. Because one doesn't want to give up his ideals and his logic. He doesn't want to adapt because what he's done has worked for him for so long. But at the same time, it's like, would they have brought in this new guy, this new person, this new detective, if they were like 100% content and happy with what he was doing? And I feel like if I'm going to apply this to like the government real quick, like I feel like the government don't understand. I don't know if this is just because they're all just very of their own bubble, but like we wouldn't be complaining and we wouldn't be upset and we wouldn't be crying about it and we wouldn't be rioting if there was no issue. And I feel like they genuinely seem to think that there is no issue. Do you know what I mean? Like they seem to think that these old ways and these old patterns are still benefiting us. Not that they ever really did, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's confusing because I feel like we are... I mean, going back to the astrology side of it that I was speaking about originally, a couple of years ago there was this thing called the conjunction. I don't know a lot about it, like to like explain it. But what I do know is that it was like a really rare planetary alignment that hasn't happened in like thousands of years, and it basically, like metaphysically, allowed people to like see the light and see the truth. And that explains this. I think this happened in I want to say it was 2020 or 2021. I can't quite remember. It was a huge thing spiritually, and it was basically they were all saying everything is going to crumble now. Like there's this thing with spiritual like law that the age of Aquarius, which happened like last month, I think, which we were in the age of Capricorn. No, we were in the age of Pisces. Apologies. Or we were in Capricorn. I can't remember. We were in one of the two. And basically it was about like, I think it was Capricorn. I think it was. It was about growth and yeah, it would have been Capricorn. I'm sorry. It was about growth, and so that would have been the Industrial Revolution and growing economies and businesses. And that was for the last like 2,000 years. I think. I want to say, maybe I'm wrong. Don't quote me on it. But it was about, so that was where we saw capitalist boom, and that was a very individualist thought process, like me, working for myself. Aquarius, on the other hand, is very communicative, I don't know if that's a word, communicative, collaborative. Like Aquarius is a very, like, I was going to say family oriented. I guess that works. Like, think of the collective, like the collective of everyone on the planet is a very collective-oriented sign. It focuses on how people feel and how people think, and more the intrinsic than the extrinsic. And obviously, so if you look at the fact that we had this conjunction, which is like allowing people to see all the shit that's going on in the world, and then you look at all the things that have come out about the government and about all these people in power, Epstein, like all of this different stuff that's come out since the conjunction on this sort of rapid scale to make people see. Like people, like spiritualists used to say that 2020 was the year of 2020 vision, because we all like got clarity. Like we all started to see things that we'd never seen before about like power structures and how things operate and what's happening to the kids in the borders in America and things like that. We were kind of like our eyes were opened in a sense. And then alongside with moving into the age of Aquarius is like this sort of overlap of we're now starting to care more about each other, and we're starting to care more about how we're treating each other. And I feel like a big thing for Gen Z is, whereas millennials and I don't know what the generations above that are, boomers and Gen X and whatever they're called, I don't know. Whereas they're kind of, the metaphor I always use, this is the one I always use, metaphor, I don't know if it's, I think it's metaphor. So I'm a bit frazzed this morning, I've literally just woken up. The metaphor I always use is you're walking to a job interview and you're late, kind of, you're a bit late. And all these people in front of you are just in your way, and they're being slow, or I don't know, they're doing all these things that's irritating you. Millennials above, and obviously this isn't completely exclusive, like this isn't completely representative, but due to their generational attitudes, because each generation has like a generational attitude, you can kind of see it, like each generation thinks a certain way based on what they grew up with. So millennials and up kind of think like, can you just get out of my way, I've got places to be. Whereas for some reason, and I think it's got something to do, I would put it down to social media, and how within social media we've learned, we've grown up with seeing that everyone has a fully fledged life of their own. So we then in turn sort of value everyone else's life a lot more than we did before, because we never had that sort of insight to people's lives before. You know, like boomers, fuck no, like they had nothing, they had no insight. Yeah, they had friends and whatever, but like it was very taboo to talk about your feelings back then, and you couldn't talk about things that were hurting you, and if you were depressed you just needed to have a drink, and like it was very much like medicate with alcohol, or I don't know, and don't talk about it and sweep it under the rug. And I say this because a lot of my family are boomers, and I've seen how they operate versus how I operate and how people like my generation operates. And I think our generation, like especially with TikTok, like the thing is with TikTok is it does turn your brain to mush. It literally does, because of the attention span thing. Like I can't deny that, because I go through phases of loving it and then deleting it, and like because I learned so much on it, but my attention span's already shocking, but TikTok just fries it. But you do sort of gain this appreciation for other people and the collective. And I mean, maybe this is just my algorithmic side of TikTok, but I see a lot about like the collective, and we all refer to each other as the collective, and it's this new mindset. I've never seen this before of like, I feel like our generation is just like, and I'm so sorry to use this word, but we're just kind of more woke. Like, I hate that word, but we really are. Like, we just are more switched on. We know what's going on. Like, we're aware of things. We don't just believe the news and the media, because we understand that the media is a tool of coercion and fear-mongering to keep us in a low vibrational state, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know what I'm talking about. And I feel like this, like I was saying with my journalist or reporter, I can't remember what my analogy was, this threatens older generations for some reason, because they're like, I think this threatens older generations where there's people in power, because they're like, fuck, I think we are way more focused on authenticity, and where's our produce coming from, where's things coming from, why are you doing this? Why are you interested in doing this? Like, we want to know the why and the where and the how. We're not just interested in buying something, you know, like there's so much saturation in our markets that we really do want to know why we should buy into you. And you have to have a solid, concrete reason. And I feel like that's something that, hello? Oh my God, sorry, my microphone just clicked off for some reason. I don't really know what that is. I can't remember what I was saying. Something about, oh yeah, we're more interested in, I feel like, the story people have to tell about their product, why they're interested in this thing. Whereas older generations, I feel like, kind of just could flog things to anyone. And I feel like, what was my original statement? About moving on from things and like getting over things and releasing things. I don't know how I'm going to circle that back around, but I'll try my hardest. Well, I feel like if I look at this from a generational standpoint, you can kind of see what I mean about how I feel like I'm speaking to Gen Z here. I know there's a lot of older people that do listen to these podcasts, so apologies for this short segment, but I feel like we are becoming so aware of the damage that is being done to our planet and the issues that sort of are coming from past behaviours. And it kind of does feel like we're the first generation that want to do something about it. And obviously that level of change, like I was saying, here we go, I'm circling it around. Like I was saying, to do with the vacuum theory, is when you are making that much change, some things have got to go. Like, seriously, some things have got to go. Like, and I know before I was talking about friends, and I was talking about, I don't know, relationships or whatever, but this is kind of a bit more deep than that. Like, if we're looking at it in the sense of the future of our life on this planet, the things that have got to go are these old institutions and these old ideals and these, frankly, old men in Parliament that are unwilling to change their ways. It's not just men. I know there are a lot of women in Parliament and governments throughout the world and big corporations that are just as bad. But I think we are aware of this. we just don't know how to change it, because right now we don't have the power or the ability. It's kind of this thing, like, I said this before in one of my podcasts about, like, what I made about kids. People don't want to give us a chance. I think, one, because they're threatened by us and they know that we are going to be the cause for the most radical change I think, like, the planet's seen, because we realize that our time is running out. But also, I think we know how to get things done. Like, I know Kylie Jenner's not a millennial, and I don't know why I'm bringing up the Kardashians in this, but if you look at how she created a successful company that has brought her in billions of dollars through just social media usage, like, we are, like, pioneering new methods that have never ever been available before, and I think that kind of makes these old men jealous, and it threatens them, and they don't like it, and that's why they're trying to do things like censor TikTok and censor our communication, because they don't want us talking to each other. They don't want us all being able to post videos and say, look at this and look at this, I see this. Like, I don't know what their reasoning is for posting about TikTok. If you haven't seen the TikTok ban bill, look it up, because it's terrifying, and it's like really not normal. Like, it's not just to do with TikTok, and it's kind of scary. Obviously it's not in the UK, but I know some Americans watch me. So watch me, listen to me. So just listen to it, just read it, because it's terrifying, and you should probably protest it or, like, sign a petition for it or something. But I feel like kind of that was me going on my government rant that happens quite frequently. But in sense of just in your daily life at the minute, we obviously are in this period, in this phase where things are changing and new relationships are forming, old relationships are crumbling is a bit of an extreme word. I don't know what word I was going to use. Like, there's less of a focus on them, you know. And I think the hardest thing is that period before the air molecules have filled up the room. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I hope I'm making sense by that analogy. It makes perfect sense in my head, but I don't know if I hope it makes sense. And, like, I know how much of a lonely time it can be, especially, I think I said this in a podcast a couple months ago, especially when you've been doing the same thing for so long, or you've been involved in the same situations and experiences. Obviously your body's grown accustomed to that, and that can be really hard to shift. And coming from experience, I'm kind of over talking about my personal experience, because I don't know, I just feel like it's a bit egoic, but I will say that I'm trying to think about how to say this. I will say that I'm trying to say it without sounding cliche, cringe, or, like, arrogant. But basically the point of what I'm trying to say is that if you are, like, going through this period of, like, loss at the minute, or this period of, like, nothing, or feeling stuck, or, like, there's this real, I don't know, I just feel like there's this real sense of stuck at the minute. A lot of people are stuck. They don't know what to do. They don't see an end in sight. There's friendship issues, or there's relationship problems, or there's abuse, or there's manipulation, or gaslighting, or whatever. I feel like people are really going through some shit right now. And I feel like that is, I'm not trying to take away anyone's struggles and base it on spirituality, because I don't like to do that. I think that's unfair. But what I will say is that through my 3 years seeing these patterns, I have seen that it's kind of like the calm before the storm, but not in the bad way, in the good way. Like, I don't know, like, the night is the darkest before the dawn, or something, I don't know, like that, where it's kind of like, this is like the roughest bit before it gets good again. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like this happens every year for me. For me specifically, this happens every year, but I don't know about other people. Other people say very similar things to me, which is why I felt the need to talk about it. But obviously for me, I, like, really resonate with the fact that every year around this time is like the refocusing stage. It's like you're like kind of deciding what's working and what's not, you know, and you're filtering out these processes of like, should I do this anymore? Is that working for me? I don't know. Also, I'm my audio waves in this podcast have been terrible and they've been shocking. So if the audio is all over the place, I'm so sorry. I don't even know how to equalize it, and I'm not going to try to. I'm sorry. If you have a problem with it, please tell me. You can do it for me. But I'm gonna leave it there. I feel like I've said enough. But thank you guys for listening. I've made a podcast in a while, so this was quite therapeutic for me. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys all listening every so often. It's been nice. I haven't posted in a while, and I'm still getting people listen like every week, every day, which is really nice. And I would like to extend my gratitude for that because it means a lot. And I think that this is something that I hold very close to my heart, and I don't appreciate it enough. So this is me extending my appreciation out loud, verbally, which is really gross. It makes me feel sick. But I'm trying to be more grateful in 2023. So there we go. Thank you guys for listening so much. I love you. Bye.